Philosophers of the past millennia have searched with great seriousness for truth, quote unquote. It wasn't long after the search for truth began that they stopped to ask themselves of the value of this search. What is the value of the search for truth? Now it is up to us moderns to answer a yet even more fundamental question. What is this so-called truth that all the great philosophers have lusted after? To begin to answer this question, an inquiry into the origin of truth-seeking as it has come to be is necessary. Socrates was the first Greek philosopher to passionately vocalize the will to truth. His questioning of our very senses with which we rely to gather anything intelligible from the outside world marked a philosophical turning point in history. However, it was Plato who was the true catalyst for the stark change in the entirety of Western thought for the next millennia. In his theory of forms, Plato proposes another world, separate from ours, in which the form of all that exists is manifested in its truest expression. It is from this that Plato comes to understand our sense perception. We can perceive, for example, the color yellow because we were once of the world of forms and therefore have a memory of the form yellow. It is in this proposition that two of the greatest errors of the millennia were made: that there is another world, and that this world is a world of intelligible, objective truths. It is from these errors that all truth-seeking of the past millennia have originated. From this perspective, it isn't any wonder as to why all philosophy that has been developed has been inept in obtaining truth. Or, as Nietzsche put it, supposing truth is a woman, what then? Are there not grounds for the suspicion that all philosophers, insofar as they were dogmatists, have been very inexpert about women? In this anthropomorphization of truth, Nietzsche suggests a more human conception of truth, one that is perspectival, an idea of truth that must be won over. Truth in this sense is not something that is static or something that is to be obtained. It is something that must be actively pursued with both subtlety and creativity, as opposed to forcing it into a box that is labeled objective. This conception of truth is in stark opposition to Plato's ideas, as Nietzsche, in contrast to proposing another world, stakes truth in the physical world, this world of life, physiology, and most importantly, psychology. Nietzsche's understanding of the world is one that rejects all metaphysical and otherworldly ideas. From this supposition, which can also be understood as a necessary presupposition for Nietzsche's philosophy, Nietzsche would propose a psychological basis for understanding what truth and truth-seeking is. As physiological creatures, there is no sense in which we could see the world in a complete, objective way. That is to say, it's impossible to have an understanding of truth that is completely dispassionate and devoid of any adulteration, because we are inherently valuing creatures. Because we are creatures that can't help but measure all things, it is impossible to come into contact with the external world and not have it veiled with subjectivity. This is not to say that Nietzsche is anti-science, as many would suggest. Contrarily, this perspectival understanding more fully encompasses science, as it takes into account the veil of our sense perception. With this perspectival understanding of truth, it is clear to see the folly of all philosophers of the past. As Nietzsche states, "What is certain is that she, the truth, has not allowed herself to be won, and today every kind of dogmatism is left standing dispirited and discouraged." Due to the attempts of all philosophers to force themselves onto truth, to take their own perspective and coin it as a universal truth, truth has chosen to run away from them. In this, the veil of mystery surrounding the philosopher's great will to truth has been stripped away and laid bare. All that is left is the philosopher's supposed conviction. So what is the true will to truth? What does the nature of truth-seeking look like that is free from the prejudices and presuppositions of philosophers of the past? It is one in which you will set sail upon yet uncharted territory, that of the dangerous maybe. When one comes to understand that all truth is human truth and is therefore in no way objective, one embarks upon a dangerous journey in which they seek truth, even if it may not necessarily be good for them. This being in opposition to the assumption that truth is revelatory of some sort of ultimate good. This truth-seeking drive will then be turned inward into the labyrinth of one's own psychology, where one must seek after themselves and continually overcome their own prejudices, presuppositions, and drives which distract them from their ultimate aims.